My name is Zachary, man. I'm going to be refuting Brianna's speech on that claims fracking is not worth the negative environmental consequences. First of all, I'd like to give some background on what hydraulic or what fracking is, or hydraulic fracturing. It's a full term. Hydraulic fracturing is the process of using pressurized liquid made up of water, sand, and chemicals to break up rock deep in the Earth's surface to release natural gas, petroleum, and brine. Her secondary claims are, first, fracking contaminates aquifers, which are underground reservoirs. Second, fracking uses astronomical amounts of water to break through rock surfaces. Third, the excess of chemicals released from fracking contribute to climate change. My response to this claim is that fracking is worth the negative environmental consequences because of economic booms caused by fracking, and that the negative environmental consequences are minimal. So so what I'm going to do is I'm going to diminish arguments and eventually dismiss them. So from realcriticalpolitics.com, a political reporter, Adam O'Neill, states, crude oil production has increased 50% since George W. Bush's final full year in office. And goes on to say, natural gas production is up by 30% over the last decade. Shale gas production, once a rounding error in the overall energy production picture, now constitutes 44% of America's gas output. So this shows that fracking has greatly contributed to economics, or the economic boom in the U.S. In response to my proponent's first claim that fracking contaminates aquifers, I found in an article from AmericanThinker.com, it stated, in an examination of 130 wells, researchers found that when properly conducted, no groundwater or aquifer pollution resulted from the practice of fracking itself. Now, I don't deny that the aquifers have been polluted from fracking, but this didn't happen that often, and it goes on to say in that article that this happens in rare cases, and where it occurs, gases are entering the water supply from the outside borehead as a result of faulty well construction, or poor cementing, both of which are manageable problems, which means they can be fixed. Simple as that. Let's see. In response to her third claim, her third claim of the excessive chemicals released from fracking contribute to climate change, from an article from an article by what's his name? Rob Weil. He states he's in the Business Insider. He states, for all its apparent ill effects locally, referring to fracking, most experts agree the rise of natural gas has lowered CO2 emissions by displacing oil. So basically, coal releases pollutants in the air. and so does fracking. But fracking is a competitor to coal, and so coal has decreased in its production, so there's less pollutants, while fracking has increased. And to prove this, also in the same article, he writes, the EPA's new carbon dioxide regulations take direct aim at U.S. coal production, natural gas's main rival for electricity output, and goes on to say, coal production has declined 16% since 2008. Let's see. I also have another illustration that kind of coincides. So Thomas Edison was an inventor. When he was a teenager, he conducted an experiment in a boxcar when he was young. He used to sell newspapers, and the boxcar caught fire and burned down. So this is a risk because it's an experiment, and all experiments have everything is a risk. But that didn't stop him, and I don't think a few negative environmental consequences should stop fracking. Yep. As Weil put it in his article, he wrote, as long as the booms are able to last, the country seems to have decided that it is willing to tolerate their local impacts for their apparent greater benefit. In conclusion, this dismisses my opponent's claim. Yeah. Thank you.
All right, you start off with the definition of fracking, which I think the advocate already did, so that's probably time that could have been saved. You indicate what the supporting points are, that's fine, and I think you got some good background information on the first point, kind of explaining how you're going to address this as you're going to diminish and dismiss those issues. The first point on aquifers, I think you do a good job explaining how it's unlikely that fracking did that directly, that in fact if it's done well in a particular way, you kind of repeat the one quote in there, because there's a failure, or it's, done incorrectly. I mean, you're emphasizing the point in the quotes that this is a mistake, and the evidence also says that it's a rare mistake. It happens very rarely in those situations, and I think that that's important. One of the things that you might point out is that the advocate, did they quantify how much harm there was, that anybody was endangered, how widespread this was? So denying that it exists is not possible, but denying that it's significant would probably be even more possible if you could show that the advocate failed to prove that it was significant, and you've demonstrated that it's likely to be relatively insignificant. There's no discussion of the water issue at all, so you basically punt on that one. And then on the third point on climate change, I mean, you've got a pretty straightforward explanation. Natural gas is replacing oil as a result of fracking, and oil releases more CO2. Same thing with coal. So if we're getting rid of the fuels that produce more CO2 and we're using one that produces substantially less, there's going to be an overall benefit. I thought you explained that pretty well. All right, it went on a little long. You probably are aware of that. Okay.